lemon is best, because you don't, because actually you eat the peel. So for non-organic lemon, there tends to be pesticides in the peel. So it's really important because the peel is what you end up eating. Although I'm sure the bacteria would neutralize it to some degree. I'd rather not take chances.
Make sure it's organic.
So you're going to take, and then so I use sea salt, or this is a Himalayan pink salt. You don't have to use those kind of salts. You can use regular salt. These are great because they have extra minerals, right? And the pink salt, I just feel, has a really nice chi to it. So you're going to make a little layer of salt in the bottom of the jar, and the recipe is in your packet, and you're going to just start jamming in the lemons. So when you're fermenting, the big thing you want to do is protect it from air. So in this case, you're protecting it from air with the lemon juice, and the salt's in there partially to get the pH to the right level, and partially to help pull the liquid out of the lemon. And so when you're making sauerkraut or kimchi or most of the other veggie ferments, you're kind of doing the same thing. So I'm going to just keep packing in a lemon and some salt, and I like to throw in spices. You don't have to, but spices will kind of permeate this whole thing. So I'm putting in bay leaves and a little cardamom. You're getting a little culinary aromatic action in there. And so I sprinkle those in, and then I'm going to just jam in more lemons and kind of squish them down. So we're getting a good amount of liquid that's rising up there. And then another layer of salt. So preserved lemon has rather more salt than most of the ferments you'll be making. And this is something you use in tiny amounts. So in a whole stew, you might use a quarter or half of a lemon. And if you're adding it as an ingredient in, say, a sauce, you might use like half a teaspoon of the diced lemon peel. So you don't have to use a whole lot. So essentially, you just keep jamming the lemons in the jar and putting a layer of salt in between, and then you can sneak in some aromatics in between. Then the interesting thing happens at the top, and this is the secret to fermentation, is getting the food being protected by a layer of liquid. So you see I'm kind of jamming it down, and I've got a layer of salty lemon juice protecting it, and I'm going to put kind of one or two more kind of as a lid. Now when I get home, let's see, basically the fermentation is going to start occurring immediately, and over the course of a few days they will transform. They'll get a little lighter, a little different color. They will be exuding more juice. The juice will oftentimes thicken up, and the lemon's going to be preserved. You know the bacteria in there are acting on it. You can also tell it's fermenting because little bubbles will oftentimes form at the bottom and creep up to the top of the jar. So you can sort of see how the chi of a fermented food is increased through the fermentation, right? And exemplified by those little bubbles, right? As one translation of chi is gas or oxygen or atmosphere. You can see that. So with these, that's already going to start happening. What I want to do when I get home is find a weight. So I usually use a smaller jar, and it kind of weights it down and keeps it protected from air. Another thing, I'm going to finish it when I get home. There might be enough juice to protect it by the time I get home that's being pulled out by the osmotic action of the salt, or I might squeeze in more fresh lemon juice. I'm going to let that sit. Actually, and with the lemon, usually what I'll end up doing is just sealing it right away, because the lemon is so acidic that you pretty much don't have pathogenic and problematic bacteria have like no chance from growing. So the preserved lemon is sort of one of the easiest ones to make. There's rarely any mishaps with that. With the other ferments, mishaps that can happen, they're not really mishaps. Usually what will happen, worst case scenario, it gets moldy, and that's because a lot of times it gets dried out, and you lose some of that liquid that's protecting the fermenting vegetables. So using the weight is a really helpful way to prevent that from happening. And also you want to monitor it. Oftentimes with active fermentation, you will have a phase where the fermentation will be so active it will bubble up, and some of the liquid may bubble out of the jar. And sometimes I'll go back and I'll usually put them on a saucer and keep it at room temperature, but I'll go back and I'll find liquid in the saucer, and I know it's evidence of bacterial action, which is cool, but I've lost a little liquid volume from that. So I'll go back and either I can push down on the weight and get enough liquid will come up to protect the top, or I might add additional brine, so dissolving salt in water and adding a little additional brine. If you add plain water, sometimes I've seen, also if it's very warm, sometimes you get more of this bubbling. If you add plain water, sometimes you're going to change the pH such that it will start getting moldy on top, or it may get very stringy and ropey, which is not necessarily bad. Some bacterial populations tend to make a more ropey effect in the ferment, and usually if you continue fermenting, that will go away.